Imagine waking up one morning, checking your mailbox, and finding a letter telling you that grilling in your own neighborhood is now banned. No burgers, no hot dogs, no ribs, nothing. That was the reality for one community when their HOA decided to outlaw BBQs completely. And what started as a ridiculous rule quickly turned into the biggest showdown this neighborhood had ever seen. For years, this neighborhood had one thing that brought everyone together: the annual summer barbecue. It wasn't just food, it was tradition. Families dragged their lawn chairs out onto the grass, kids ran around with water balloons, and the smell of smoked ribs filled the air. The event was woven into the very identity of the place. New neighbors looked forward to it, old neighbors cherished it, and even people from nearby communities would sometimes wander in, knowing they'd be welcomed with a plate of food. But when a new HOA president stepped in, things changed. She was the type who carried a clipboard everywhere, the kind who thought rules were more important than people. To her, BBQs were unsanitary, too noisy, and her favorite phrase, bad for property values. So with one meeting, she pushed through a ban. No more grilling in community spaces, no more gatherings with smokers or pits, and if anyone dared to ignore the rule, they'd be fined. At first, neighbors laughed. There's no way she can enforce that, they said, but soon the laughter would stop. Within weeks, warning letters started appearing in mailboxes. A dad who set up a small grill for his kid's birthday, $50 fine. A retired couple who invited a few friends over for hot dogs, $100 fine. The HOA president was making an example out of people, showing that she wasn't bluffing. The neighborhood began to change. The park, once alive with the sound of kids playing and families cooking, grew quiet. Neighbors stopped planning parties, worried about getting slapped with another fee. Conversations in driveways turned from friendly greetings to hushed complaints about that woman with the clipboard. The president believed she had won. She strutted around, convinced that her rules were restoring order. But what she didn't realize was that all she was doing was fueling resentment. The community wasn't giving up, it was getting ready. Because here's the thing, you can push people only so far before they push back. And when you take away something as simple, as harmless, and as deeply rooted as a summer barbecue, you're not just banning food, you're banning joy. It started quietly, with whispers between neighbors. We should do something. We can't let her get away with this. But it was one longtime resident, a veteran who'd lived there for decades, who finally lit the fire. Standing in his driveway, flipping burgers for his grandkids, he told the neighbors gathered around, "If they don't want us to have one BBQ, then let's give them the biggest cookout they've ever seen." That sentence was all it took. Suddenly, phones lit up, group chats buzzed, and plans were made in secret. Families volunteered grills, smokers, and food. Teens offered to make posters and signs. Local musicians offered to bring guitars and speakers. Everyone had the same goal: one giant, neighborhood-wide cookout that would make the HOA regret ever messing with tradition. The day of the rebellion was like something out of a movie. By noon, smoke curled into the sky from every corner of the neighborhood. Driveways were lined with grills, small ones, big ones, even custom-built smokers hauled in on trailers. Tables stretched across lawns, covered with food: ribs, brisket, corn, hot dogs, baked beans, pies. Kids zoomed past with sparklers and balloons while music drifted through the streets. And the best part? It wasn't just one street. It spread. One block fired up a grill, then another and another. By the end of the afternoon, the entire neighborhood had transformed into one giant festival. It wasn't just a cookout anymore. It was a statement. The HOA president didn't know what hit her. She stormed out of her house, waving her clipboard like a sword, shouting about violations and fines. But instead of frightened neighbors, she was met with cameras and laughter. People filmed her outbursts on their phones. Some waved ribs at her like a peace offering. Others shouted, "Want a plate?" every time she barked about fines. The more she yelled, the more ridiculous she looked. Local news crews, tipped off by residents, showed up and started filming. Within hours, the story spread online. HOA bans BBQs. Residents respond with Feast of the Year. The photos were stunning. Rows of grills, happy families, a community united. Backed into a corner, the HOA had no choice. The fines were dropped, the ban was reviewed, and quietly the entire rule disappeared from the handbook. The president, once so confident, lost her grip on power. Within months, she was voted out. But the barbecue? It lived on. From that day forward, the annual community cookout wasn't just a neighborhood tradition. It was a symbol of unity, resilience, and a little sweet revenge. Every year it grew bigger, louder, and prouder. So in the end, the HOA tried to kill the barbecue tradition, but instead, they cooked up their own downfall. Don't forget to like and subscribe.